Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week I'm going to show you guys 3 of my most popular furniture flips to date so far, whether you're needing ideas for your own flips or inspiration for something in your home. Because you guys love this type of video so much last time, I decided to do it again for this week's video. I have a lot of new viewers since I've done these flips, and I thought it would be fun to compare where I started versus the videos I've made now. I feel like I've become much more comfortable on camera since these were filmed, and my editing has gotten a lot better too, so feel free to laugh with me and learn something new. Now let's enjoy these makeovers, first starting off with how to fix bubbled water damage on veneer. Hello everyone, this is the dresser we are going to be working on today. I got this piece off of Facebook Marketplace for free because someone was moving and they just needed it gone. It's in pretty good condition, just a bit outdated with some minor bubbling on the top and a few scratches, nothing we can't fix. Like always, I'm starting by removing the hardware. A lot of the time with these older pieces, the hardware is already loose, which makes removing them super easy. I am hoping to keep them and give them a nice coat of gold spray paint to spruce them up. You can see I'm also taking out the drawers as I go to help with the next step, which will be cleaning. Real quick, if you guys like this type of content, please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you aren't already. We are trying to reach a goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and every interaction helps, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing this video. It all helps a ton, so thank you guys so much. I couldn't do it without you. Once all the hardware is off, I make sure to put it in some container or a bag like I did here to keep it all together. There's been times where I didn't do that and I ended up losing pieces. I'm sure you all can relate to that, whether it be missing hardware pieces or some other project that you're working on. To get this piece clean and ready for paint, I mixed together warm water and Dawn dish soap. Not only is it affordable and in many of your homes already, it also does the job really well. I make sure to clean everywhere, including the inside of the dresser as well. Now, when I see the water getting dirty like this, I make sure to switch it out before continuing, otherwise you're basically just spreading it around. I had to do this before moving on to the drawers. After cleaning the drawers, I also rinsed down the piece with warm water alone. Then it was time to make some repairs and modifications. Here I'm showing you this decoration piece that is falling down a bit. Simple taps with a hammer will get it back into place. You can also use some wood glue for extra strength, but I didn't do that because I'm actually going to be taking them off. You can see that I'm using my hammer and putty knife to pry it away instead of hammering it back in. Once that first piece was off, I went in and did the same exact thing with the next 2 pieces. I see this decoration style on a lot of dressers that I work with. I got lucky with this one. You can't always take them off like I did, but here is them all off. I might save them for another project because they are kind of cool. Underneath that middle section was particle board, so I took my wood filler and filled that in to give it a smooth surface for paint. Then I started sanding the top down. It's hard to see on camera, but the top was bubbling pretty bad. You can usually get rid of that by sanding it with a medium grit. It would be much easier with a sander, but because we are in the middle of winter here in Minnesota, there was no way I was going to get this piece outside. After sanding best that I could, I went in with a microfiber towel just to get all of that dust off before we moved on to the next step. So after hand sanding the best that I could, I took my wood filler yet again to fill in any previous scratches. And there were quite a few by the time I was done with this top. I had to let that dry for a few hours, but then I was able to go in with 100 grit sandpaper to smooth it all out. While I had my sandpaper out, I also gave the rest of the piece a good scuff sand so that it would be ready for primer. Again, making sure to use my microfiber towel to get all of the dust particles off. For priming, I am using my Zinsser 321 primer, and I actually did 2 coats of this primer on the top here. I only showed the first coat, but I thought with all of the previous bubbling and how I had to sand a lot of that down, I just wanted to make sure that we were ready for the paint when the time had come. So I did 2 coats of the primer there, and then 1 coat of primer on the rest of the dresser, including the drawer fronts as well. When it comes to technique and efficiency with priming, I like to use a roller. I did start out with using a paintbrush, and it took a lot of time, and I think I have gathered with rolling, it gives a lot smoother of a finish. I mean, I barely can feel that roller texture, so I like to roll on my primer nowadays. But I have seen it brushed on, I have brushed it on myself, so if you want to do it that way, you can too. And pro tip, you can actually use that rolling pad a few times as long as you're using it for the same product, and obviously you will have to seal it up either with a baggie or some ceramic wrap just so that it doesn't dry out, but I usually use a rolling pad 2 to 3 times before I end up throwing it away. Now over the past month or two, I've gotten really into this BB Frosh paint transformer. I'm sure you guys have seen it before, but I really like using it because you can buy gallons and gallons of paint and just use that. In the long run, it is a lot more affordable, so as much as I do like the furniture paint brands and do use them, I really like using the transformer as well. I do have a video on how to actually use the paint transformer, and I will link that down below if you want to see it, but I decided not to mix it up in the video for you guys just because it can get a little repetitive. So if you haven't seen how to use the paint transformer, I will link that down below. But I am using a black from Lowe's. I don't even know the name. I got it so long ago. But I'm just coming to an end of this big gallon, and I have done so many projects with it. Just for a little bit more of a background, the paint transformer practically takes any type of paint, even if it is a wall paint, a furniture paint, and turns it into a chalk style paint so that you can use it on your furniture. I did used to use this paint without the paint transformer, and I didn't notice too much of a difference, but I do know that with using the paint transformer, your paint holds up a lot better than it would without, and if this is going to be a high traffic piece, you definitely want that on your furniture instead of just a regular paint. As soon as I was finished with the first coat, I had to let it dry for a couple hours. There is always that dry time that you have to think about. And then I went in with the second coat of paint, which got very good coverage for me. As soon as the paint had dried, I was ready to put on my top coat. I like to use the Minwax polyacrylic in clear matte, and what I do is I take some more of the leftover color and I mix it with the polyacrylic. This really helps, especially on those darker colors with the cloudiness. And then I just apply that to the entirety of the dresser and the drawer fronts. Now once you're done with this, you do want to make sure that you are kind of checking your piece over. I think you can see in a few clips here that if you look kind of underneath the dresser, you can see some spots that I've missed. So you want to make sure that you're always going back and checking for spots that you might miss before you actually go ahead and sell your piece. Now that the poly is on, we just gotta let that dry. I'm gonna get the hardware on and we're starting to wrap up this piece. If you like this type of content, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We're so close to 1,500 subscribers. I can't thank you guys enough for that. I also want to mention that you will see in the final reveal, the poly looks like it's not completely dry yet, and that's because there was a little bit of dry time left to it. So if you do notice that, that is why, but otherwise it is time to get into the final reveal. Alright, this is going to be the piece we are working on today. I got this piece from my best friend's boyfriend, as they know what I've been up to with furniture flipping, and they kindly gave it to me for free, which is always the best. I'm starting this makeover by removing the hardware. These wooden knobs are almost always super easy to remove. I use my screwdriver to get them going, and from there I'm able to just twist them off with my hands. I'm taking all of the hardware off, including the one on the door. As I take the hardware off, I'm also removing the drawers so it's easier to paint afterwards. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to be keeping the hardware or replacing them, so I'm just setting them aside to think about it as I get further into the flip. After that's taken care of, I get my bucket of warm water and Dawn dish soap so I'm ready to clean. This piece is overall in amazing condition. It's just super dusty from sitting in the garage for quite a while. Because it's so dusty, I'm really making sure to take my time and get it all out of all the corners from top to bottom, as well as the drawers. I'm also using a microfiber towel because that's what's really going to grab onto this dust. I'm also making sure to really get inside of that cubby on all the sides, the back, and the shelf itself, because I am going to be keeping this natural and I want it to look really clean. Once I was done, I also made sure to go back and rinse my piece so the soap was off. Then I took a 220 grit sandpaper and scuffed up the surface to make sure it would be ready for paint. Right after, I took a paper towel to it so that there would be no dust left behind when I was ready to go in and paint. At this point, I'm usually preparing my primer, but today we are trying out a new paint. You guys have heard me rave about Melange paint, and I figured it was time to try out their one line. Today I'm using the color Mink Brown. The one line doesn't require any priming or top coating, which is going to make a quick and easy flip. But just because you don't have to prime or top coat, that doesn't mean you can skip the prep work you just saw me do. I noticed that this paint is a little bit thinner, but I do like that because then it moves further and little paint will go a long way. I'm really loving this color mink brown so far. It's kind of like a light brown, but also has some gray undertones that I really like, making it such a unique color. For these details, you see that I'm just trying to push the paint into the details, but I make sure to go back and catch any of the excess paint or places where the paint may drip, but it is kind of hard to get into those grooves, so you just want to make sure to take your time and really watch what you're doing. Now I thought I could just paint around the door, but it ended up being too much of a hassle, so I decided to take it off. I just used my screwdriver to unscrew everything from the door, and then I took the hinges off as well. This process is a lot easier than it seems. This was my first time, and it went super smoothly. Once the door and the hinges were off, I got back to painting the first coat of mink brown. Of course, don't forget about the drawers. I finally decided I was going to be keeping the hardware. I just may or may not be doing something to change them up a bit. Otherwise, I would be using my wood filler right now to fill in the existing holes. I had to let the first coat dry for a couple hours, and then I was able to get into the second coat. I am absolutely loving how smooth the paint dried, so I didn't have to sand in between coats. For the feet of this dresser, I decided to twist them off and paint them that way. By laying newspaper down, it was much easier to access. Again, I had to let the paint dry on the feet for a couple hours, and I did have to do this twice because the feet also needed 2 coats, but then I was ready to put them back on. During this time, I also started to paint the door, but somehow lost the footage. Then we put the door back on and decided to leave the hardware as is, making this flip complete and ready for the final reveal. Set of 2, and they're in kind of beaten up condition, so I think that this will be absolutely perfect to flip. The last mid-century modern flip we did black, and we are doing that again because it just sold so fast, but I thought I would change up the color of the hardware, so we're going to do that today. So we're going to get right out there and start with the first step, which is taking the hardware off. Jeez. I don't know if this hardware has ever been taken off, because even with the screw out, I had to just grab it off. Look how cute this hardware is though. It's so unique. I've seen pieces a lot like it, but never anything like this. And I just think this is beautiful. I love this hardware. Definitely gonna be keeping this. I think the same thing is going for this one. So look, the screw is off. This isn't coming out. You gotta oh, jeez. It's been a while since this hardware has been taken off. Now, if you guys can notice here, I have 2 solo cups. I like to keep the 2 when I'm doing 2 dressers at one time. I like to keep them separate just because sometimes the hardware is not always the same lengths, so it just makes it so much easier when you're putting the hardware back on for it to, you know, what hardware goes where. So we got 2 different ones. So you guys, I didn't notice this until just now, but this is actually Bassett furniture. So when you're picking up furniture or you're redoing any furniture, seeing logos like these are extremely important, and it just ups the value of the the piece, I guess you could say. Brands that know they have high quality pieces will have those stamps in there so that they can be recognized by their quality of furniture. So you know that you've got a good piece quality of furniture if there's a stamp in there. And I happen to love Bassett furniture, so it's a good sign. Now that the hardware is off, we're gonna get into the second step of prep work, and that is cleaning off the piece. Okay, so when it comes time to cleaning, what I always do is I take Dawn dish soap and my bucket of warm water with a new rag, and I just wipe it all down. I wipe the entire piece down, the top, the bottoms, the drawers, inside the drawers. And this is really gonna help get any of the dirt, the grime, the grease off, any spider webs if it's been sitting for a while, and it can also help get odor out. Alright, so we got all of that wiped off. Now we need to go back again and rinse with just regular water. Alright, as I was wiping it off, I did find some parts that needed to be filled with wood filler, so we're going in with the wood filler to fill it. Okay, so I found that there were a lot of nicks on the dressers, so I took your guys' advice and I got a smaller putty knife, and I got this from the dollar store, and it's pretty great quality too, so I'm pretty surprised by that, and I just used it and I love it so far. And then I decided to switch up my wood filler. I wasn't the biggest fan of the wood filler I've used in the past, but I did run across this color changing wood filler, and it's more of a putty, you know, it's like a more of a smooth consistency than a grainy one like the last wood filler I've been using. And what I really like about this is that it goes on pink, but once it's dry, it turns into the natural wood color. So we just put that on, as you'll see in the video, and so far I'm loving it. I'm just gonna wait for it to dry. Okay, so it's been about an hour now, and you can see that it is all tan. It's not pink anymore. You can see right there as well. So now we are going to go in with 150 grit. We just want to scuff sand it so that the paint can adhere to the surface. So we're gonna get started and do that. Alright, so everything has now been sanded. It might be a little bit hard to tell just because it's such a light color, but everything is all roughened up, so that's perfect for painting conditions. So now all we have to do is wipe off the sawdust with a wet rag, and we'll be ready to take it inside to prime. Alright, everything's wiped off. Now it's time to get everything inside so that we can start priming. Alright, so now we are on the priming stage, and I like to roll on my primer. I find that it's a lot faster, it's a lot smoother, and there's a lot less waste as well when you're priming. So I am using the 123 Zinsser primer. I've used that in my other videos and I really like it. So we're just gonna get started on priming this first piece. I'm not sure which part shows once the drawers are in, so I'm just gonna do with what I see with the primer, but then with the paint, I'm gonna make sure I do really well because I don't wanna have to go back later and apply more paint. So right on these curves, I'm not exactly sure where the drawer slides cut off these pieces, so we'll wait until then. All right, so I took a second to clean out the inside of the dresser. Usually I do that, but for some reason it spaced my mind, and I'm so glad that I did because this is a very old dresser and there was a lot of dust. So now that we got that out of the way, we're gonna keep on priming. Try to do that before you put any paint on because you risk the chance of the dust getting in the primer, so I had to be super careful. But yeah, we're gonna keep priming now. Okay, so I'm painting the drawer, and I don't ever put tape on the sides of the drawers because I know if I take a wet paper towel while the paint is still wet, I can get most of it off. It might show up just a little bit. Really, that's only because I decided to turn my phone on to record this, but it will come off with a wet paper towel, so make sure that you have one of those nearby or whatever you need to do in case you get it on there. Otherwise, you can use tape, which a lot of people do. So the drawers are all done and everything has been primed, so now we just have to wait for it to dry and we can go on to painting. All right, you guys, it is day 2 of flipping this dresser set, and we are going to be using this black paint that we used in the last video that I had done the mid-century modern dressers with. You know, that set sold so fast that, you know, like you want to change things up, but also when you know something sells, you want to do it again, and that's where I'm at with this one. So we're going to be doing the black again, but as I said before, we are going to change the hardware up, so you'll see something a little bit different there. But this is the Volkswagen Signature paint. You can get this at Lowe's. I chose satin for this one, and a lot of people say that I shouldn't be using this on the dressers, but so far it's turned out really great on everything that I've done so far. So we're gonna get started on painting on the first coat. So the first coat is on. Now all we have to do is let it dry and we can get into the second coat. All right, so the first coat is now dry and we're moving on to the second coat. I looked it over to make sure that it didn't need a sanding in between, and I don't know why, but this paint always dries super smooth. So, I mean, that's a good thing. So we're not gonna sand on top of this first coat. We're just gonna get right into the second one. Now, I didn't focus on this too much during the first coat because it's the first coat and the second coat is gonna be on top. But when you're doing like the last coat, you want to make sure to do one long swipe. This will just help prevent brush strokes and it'll give it a more even finish. So I'm making sure whatever I do for the last stroke, it's all the way through. And always try to brush with the grain. So remember that from the beginning. Okay, now that all the drawers are done and the second coat is on everything, we are gonna stop to let that dry and work on the hardware. All right, so we took a little detour to my bathtub here and we are going to wash some hardware. I still have these separated between the two, so I'm gonna do this stack first. In here, I just have water and Dawn dish soap. Again, Dawn dish soap is such a good grease cutter, so I can rely on that for cleaning up everything. Just gonna put these in here. And then I'm gonna let it soak for 5 minutes. All right, now that they've been soaking, I'm gonna take a microfiber towel, get it wet, and really I'm just gonna scrub these. I mean, I just wanna get them clean since we are gonna be spray painting them. So I can't get them perfect, but I can get any of the loose stuff off of them. And then just gonna rinse it, and I'm just gonna put it on a towel for now. And then I'm gonna do that for all of the hardware. All right, I am going to do the same thing with the other set of hardware, and I'm gonna let these air dry and then we can get started on spray painting them. So for spray paint, now that this is all dried off and cleaned off, we are going to be doing rose gold. And I've got a cute little spray gun here. It makes it super easy. So we're gonna go ahead and spray paint the hardware. All right, so that spray paint is all on now. We just have to let it dry and then we'll flip them over and do the other sides. It doesn't take long for these to dry, so we've flipped them all over and we're gonna be spray painting the other side now. Now again, we gotta let these dry and then we'll put the protective coat on these. All right, the second coat has now been dried and we got the hardware going. So we are going to be putting on the top coat. We are using the Minwax Polyacrylic Clear Matte, I believe. Yep, Clear Matte. I've got it in this cup right here and we're just gonna apply it to all the dressers and the drawers. right, now that all of the top coat is on, all we have to do is get the hardware on. All right, you guys, this is the final product. So there's one thing that I didn't show that was on camera, but I want to explain to you guys in case this ever happens to you. So as we were putting the drawers back in, some of the drawers were sticking on the top here, and that's because sometimes when you put like a layer of paint on, it thickens up just a little bit so that it can't go through. So what we ended up doing, and I didn't show this, but I sanded the top here just to thin it out a little bit, and then I sanded it a little bit more just so that I knew when I put this last coat of paint on, it would slide right through. So I just wanted to let you guys know that because I know I've run across this problem before and sometimes people don't know how to fix that. So anyways, this is the final product of both the dressers. I absolutely love the rose gold. I think that was a perfect touch to put on these mid-century modern pieces. I love doing black for these. I think with just how like sleek the drawers are, it's just, the black just makes it perfect. So we have yet to do another color for a mid-century modern, but I'm stuck on the black. So anyways, you guys, this is going to be the end of the video. If you like this type of content, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. Comment down below if you guys have done a mid-century modern piece. And don't forget to like the video as well. See you in the next one. Bye.